SteelRoot, a national leader in helping companies in the defense industrial base with CMMC preparation and federal cybersecurity regulations. Big or small, SteelRoot is here to help design, build, and manage IT. The SteelRoot reference architecture is a secure, cloud-native operating environment built on zero trust principles. SteelRoot also provides managed cybersecurity, IT, and virtual ISSO services. Visit steelroot.us for more information. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of 123 CMMC. My name is Dana Mantilia. I will be your host today, and our special guest is Chris Golden, and he is the CISO for SPC Health. So welcome, Chris. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you and a little bit about your company?
Well, thanks for the invitation. Yeah, sure. So I'm a retired Air Force colonel, so I did this against sort of real bad guys in real wars for a couple decades. When I retired, I went to work doing cybersecurity for Wall Street, and then moved over to healthcare. And while I was with the healthcare arena is when I got involved with CMMC. I was one of the 41 first people to sort of answer the white paper request that the DoD had as their RFI back in October of 2019. Went to the industry day, was part of the people that formed the initial working groups, led 3 or 4 of those working groups, and then eventually we formed the board. I was a founding member of the board and served with the CMMC AB for about a year and a half, almost 2 years, until this past March when I decided I wanted my life back, and only one full-time job was enough for me. And so I came off the board. And then I just transitioned as the CISO into SPC Health. SPC Health, for those that don't know, is basically a medical consulting company. So when hospitals are not making enough money or having problems with their pharmacies or whatever the case may be, they hire SPC Health to come in and work, and help them do that. And so PHI, or private health information, is pretty important, obviously, to them, and that's what my job is to protect.
Wow, that's very impressive. You have quite a background. It's very, very impressive.
Thank you.
I didn't realize how involved you were with the whole initial start of CMMC, so that's interesting. Okay, so today we are going to talk about zero trust, which is something some people understand, some people don't understand. So that's going to be our first question. What is zero trust?
So zero trust is an architecture on how to protect information processing or computing systems is really what it is. And so if you think about how you log on and use computer systems today, you are trusted. And that's where the term zero trust comes from, is you are no longer trusted in the new architecture. So when you log on, whether it's with a username and a password, which of course most of us do not recommend, whether there's multi-factor authentication, which most of us do recommend, or biometrics, or whatever the case may be, generally in most systems from that point forward, you are trusted. It is assumed that it is you. That the system has done a good job in authenticating that you, giving you authorization to what you need authorization to, and moving forward. Where in zero trust, that does not occur. You are given access once, and then you have to sort of revalidate throughout the course of your interaction with those operating systems constantly that it is still you, and nothing has really changed. And they collect a lot of different information from a lot of different security systems to do that, but that's really the big difference between what sort of normal security architecture looks like, excuse me, and what zero trust is.
I would guess that there's probably a little bit of kickback on that because it must take a little bit extra time when you're doing anything if you have a zero trust situation, correct?
There is the potential for some latency, but generally this stuff happens at the nanosecond, microsecond level. That's really not, a human being can't recognize that. It takes 4 microseconds versus 5 microseconds kind of thing.
Okay, good.
So yeah, there is some latency, certainly, and the more this kind of architecture you have on your system, sometimes you have agents that you have to install in your systems that also take up CPU cycles. But generally, these things are happening pretty quickly in the background, and most people were just not capable of understanding how fast it's happening or recognizing that it's happening.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So speaking of the government, why are they moving towards this?
So President Biden and the current administration just released a new executive order on national cybersecurity, and it was sort of basically directing the executive branch to go into the direction of zero trust. And I think the reason for that is obviously some well-known and well-publicized incidents that the government's had, starting back with the OPM breach, the Office of Personnel Management, years ago, which I got my letter as a military member saying that my data may have been lost. That's framed on my wall, and I keep that, always within constant sight. But the SolarWinds hack obviously was directed specifically at a number of government agencies because so much of the technology that the government uses, also the private sector uses, there's a lot of spillover effect there where, if you're being attacked at the government level, a lot of other things are going to be vulnerable just because they use sort of the same stuff, But yeah, so that's one of the reasons why I think President Biden and his team have directed the executive branch to move towards zero trust, is to sort of get ahead. The federal government, frankly, on the unclassified level has been fairly behind the commercial sector in terms of its cybersecurity. At the secret and at the top secret level, certainly it's a little bit better, but certainly at the unclassified level, they've been significantly behind. And so I think that's the administration's attempt, is to get them sort of into the modern era. And this is sort of the latest and greatest sort of way of thinking about security. So they're just going to jump ahead on that curve, I think.
Okay. All right. So what are some basic components of zero trust architecture?
Yeah, so the nomenclature is called planes, and there's really two planes of information. So one is a basically command and control plane, and then one is the data plane. So if you think about sending a request to a database or an email or something like that, that's sort of data, and it sort of goes along the pipe and goes through a number of different controls, whether they're firewalls or whether they're hubs or whether they're routers or whatever the case is to get from point A to point B. That still happens. That's in the data plane under zero trust architecture. But on top of that, we have a command and control plane, which is determining whether that action should actually happen or not. And so the command and control plane might look at, and let's say your access, and so, wow, you're accessing it from your house normally, but today you're accessing it from some other country or some other location. Is that a threat? Did she move? Is she on a business trip? So it's going to start getting that kind of information and figuring things out. It looks at how you normally type in your password, the cadence you do that. Is it different? Is it someone else typing it? So it collects all this information sort of about what you're doing to give you access to actually use the data plane and actually move stuff around or access databases or send emails or whatever the case may be. So that's really the biggest, probably two components of the zero trust architecture, is the data plane and then sort of the command and control plane that does all the decision making in the background that gives you access or allows you to do certain things that you want to do on the system.
So this may be a very basic question, but so let's say, for example, somebody wants to implement this into their software applications that they have.
Yep.
How do they go about doing that?
Yeah, so a lot of the systems that are out there, a lot of the techniques we use in the cybersecurity realm are directly applicable to zero trust. It just, how they get used might be a little bit different. Let me give you an example. So a firewall, most companies have some kind of firewall. It's a simple routing device that blocks, incoming traffic that it doesn't understand or doesn't want, or whatever rules are put in that firewall, it will execute those rules. There's really no threat or intelligence built into those firewalls, even though some of the next gen firewalls are getting there. But from a zero trust perspective, there's really not enough sort of dynamic real-time decision making at the firewall level to implement zero trust. But it's going to be part of the zero trust architecture, right? So something on that data plane will be requested, and then that command and control plane will look at it and go, yeah, I think that's okay, and dynamically and real time change that firewall rule to either allow or disallow access. And so it's still going to be part of the overall component of your security structure, but how it gets used is going to change a little subtly, I think.
Okay, and it's something that they can do. They can take their current software system and then they can add this onto it. Okay, well, that's good. Because some people might be wondering that as they start to get into, what do I need to do for CMMC, and putting some of these security measures in place that are not there right now.
Yeah, the basics of CMMC start with obviously the DFARS clause and the NIST 171 clause. So my recommendation has been since the beginning, if you have a defense contract and you have one of those two clauses, do it. Be in compliance with one of those two clauses, and then your migration to CMMC, whenever that happens, will be much easier than going from zero to hero.
Yeah, and I think because a lot of them have been self-assessing that they are currently doing this and they may not be doing this. I think the world's going to be in a much better place when we are all following the CMMC guidelines.
Agreed.
Okay, so what needs to be replaced in my ecosystem to move towards zero trust? If we just kind of start with this.
Yeah, we just sort of touched about that. Really, probably not very much. Most of the tools you have now, whether it's again firewalls, incident detection systems, incident prevention systems, whitelisting. I mean, SIM platforms, DLP. I know there's a lot of acronyms here, but that's the world we live in cyber. All those things are still going to be valuable tools to you. Again, it's how you use them sort of will be changed. So DLP stands for data loss prevention. It's what allows you to stop or block the exfiltration of sensitive data from your system. So that DLP system will still be a very valuable component of your zero trust architecture. However, how it gets used again will be a little bit differently, because it's going to take sort of commands from that command and control plane in the zero trust architecture as it dynamically and in somewhat real time makes decisions on whether that data should leave your environment. And so the tool will still be used, but again, how it gets used is just subtly different, I think.
Okay, well, that's very, very interesting. It's definitely an important topic for all of us. And I appreciate all your extra awesome information on that. That was really good. Is there anything else you'd like to share with everybody about this before we go?
No, I think the biggest things is, take it seriously. Most companies are not built by, let's say, HR professionals. They don't understand local, state, federal labor law. So what do? They hire HR professionals, set up a little HR shop, and do it right. Well, cybersecurity sort of needs to be seen in the same vernacular. I don't expect anybody that starts a company to be an expert in cybersecurity, but it's going to be the table stakes now is the price of admission to do this. So find somebody that's good, that you trust, work with them and set up your little shop and get going in the right direction, because, putting your head in the sand is no longer going to be an effective excuse, I think, moving on.
Yeah, sooner than later. And as we're seeing in the news every day now, something else is popping up. And one of these days, somebody's attention's got to get caught. Like, we really need to start doing something here at our organization. So
exactly.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time and all your information. And thank you, everybody, for watching. And we hope to see you on the next episode of 123 CMMC. Bye. SteelRoot, a national leader in helping companies in the defense industrial base with CMMC preparation and federal cybersecurity regulations. Big or small, SteelRoot is here to help design, build, and manage IT. The SteelRoot reference architecture is a secure, cloud-native operating environment built on zero trust principles. SteelRoot also provides managed cybersecurity, IT, and virtual ISSO services. Visit steelroot.us for more information.